Hello, everybody. Welcome to DEMO2025 at WSA 180. It's okay, you can all start taking your seats while I'm talking and warming us up. My name is Raouz Ben-Getch, and I'm the Deputy Director at New Inc. I'm here to introduce the Art and Code track presentations. This track focuses on experimentation in computational techniques for digital art making, art preservation, distribution, digital preservation, and encourages collaboration between artists, researchers, engineers, and technologists. We support the New Inc. members in this track in partnership with Rhizome. To introduce the ideas and projects we're about to hear about, Rashaad Newsome will offer us a guiding keynote. Rashaad Newsome is a trailblazing filmmaker, multidisciplinary artist, whose work blends film, performance, technology, and community organizing to reimagine the future of storytelling. Through immersive, genre-defining experiences, he challenges dominant narratives and creates expansive space for Black, queer, and trans voices. Rashad will dive into his trailblazing research around artificial intelligence, including how his work both leverages and critiques the new medium. As Newsome has said, we can learn a lot about the human condition by looking at the tools we create and how we use them. Rashad's feature-length film documenting his groundbreaking artwork at the Park Avenue Armory is now touring, and you can learn more about it at assemblythefilm.com. Now, please join me in welcoming our Art and Code keynote speaker, Rashaad Newsome.
Hello, everyone. How are you tonight? Thank you, New Inc., for having me. When I was a kid growing up in New Orleans, I thought magic was real. Not the kind in fairy tales, but in the way people could transform grief into style, survival into choreography. That was my first technology, culture. A way of organizing energy, people, and spaces into something sacred. And I believe that's still what I'm doing today. If you remember nothing else from this evening, remember this. Technology is not neutral. It is cultural. It carries the values, histories, and biases of those who create it. My work asks, what happens when those creators that are Black, queer, trans, non-binary, and deeply rooted in ritual, community, and care make work? For instance, in Assembly, I took over the Park Avenue Armory Drill Hall, an architecture built for control, and turned it into a Black queer sanctum. We filled it with live performances, objects, holograms, and an AI called Being the Digital Griot. But before the tech, before the code, we began with ritual, a New Orleans cleansing ceremony to open the space and make it safe for liberation. That's how I design. I start with spirit, not software. In hands performance, I looked at gestures born from resistance, dances like voguing, flexing, and Black queer American Sign Language. I treated these gestures not just as choreography, but as data, as design systems rooted in survival. And in I Come as One, but Stand as 1,000, I go even further, working with robotics to choreograph over 1,000 drones into a collective Black queer consciousness, a living monument made of light and air. These aren't just separated pieces, they are part of larger systems of thinking. Each project is an attempt to build new architectures for feeling, for remembering, and for being seen. I use these tools not to chase spectacle, but to challenge who technology is made for and what it's made to do. Because if we don't interrupt these systems, they will continue to encode harm. So here's what I've learned. Ritual is technology. It's a protocol for transformation. Community is technology. It's a design for resilience. Culture is technology. It's our most sophisticated operating system. And liberation is always the goal. Design isn't just visual, it's spatial, it's emotional, it's political, and in the hands of marginalized creators, it becomes something else entirely, a tool for reprogramming the world. So I want to ask you, what rituals guide your creative process? What stories are embedded in your tools? What futures are you designing, even unintentionally? We are not just artists or technologists or designers, we are engineers of possibility. We are not here to predict the future, we are here to invent it. So I invite you to design like your ancestors are watching. If your ancestors held up systems of oppression, then design in direct defiance to their legacy. Code like your liberation depends on it. Build as joy as the blueprint. Because the future isn't waiting, it's already assembling through us. Thank you.
Hello. Hi. My name is Tuerhong Guliniali. I am a Uyghur Chinese multimedia artist. My practice stems from my roots in Urumqi. I'm going to tell you a story today. My grandma on my mom's side, Tohtubu, raised 8 children on her own. My mom, Gul Bahar, was given the name by her grandpa, who wished my mom to embody great strength. Just as his blessings, she's as resilient as Bahar, as gentle as new beginnings. And this is me. My grandma named me Gul Nial, Birjip Bulsundep. Hope the names are paired up. After my mom's name, Gul Bahar. Gul Nial means many things: blossoming sapling, femininity, gentleness, and hope. Gul means flower, Nial means young plant or to thrive. For the longest time, I give Gul Nial my own meaning. Like lotus flower, Chuyuni Arborat, to remind myself to always stay true to who I am. To me, Gul Nial means the blessing and love that came before me. I continue to live with a name that carries everyone that I love deeply. As a Chinese individual, my name was then transliterated to Guliniali. For the longest time, I carried 2 names, Guli or Niali, and that's me when I was in 6th grade. Then anglicizing my name to Nial when I went to my first predominantly white institutions in the States. Preferred name was then introduced to me, where I started to reclaim my name as Gul Niyal.
Gul Niyal? You have no idea how many times I tried to say that name.
Basically, he was saying it's hard to say my name, but it really isn't. Notice how there's a Y in my name and not an H. Because of the Southern Uyghur accent on one side of my family, not until 2022, I didn't know the correct Latin spelling of my name has an H in it. So at one point, I was like, where could I archive all these transformations? Change of names, change of environments, everything. I started to use digital media. Looking back, I've been self-archiving my names on platforms like Rednote, Xiaohongshu, or Instagram as Gul Nial or Gul Nial Chuyuni Arborat. But then what happens though? I don't know if you're aware. There was a digital world colliding. After I carefully curated all these personal notes in 2 different platforms, my experience of navigating naming systems manifests itself in the digital world. People with similar cultural identities were questioned on their nationality, Chinese fluency, and digital presence. So I start to wonder, could I interrogate the use of digital naming and its connection to identity visibility and reclamation? I want to understand how people navigated their digital selves through naming, what they chose to encode, and how these names were decoded by others. So then I created a website. You could scan the QR code if you want. It's called whatisyourname.online. It's a web-based archive interrogating one's relationship with their names and digital presence. The website sheds light on how digital naming influences the perception of one's digital self. Ultimately, me and the project investigates how digital naming has this potential for reclaiming like I said before, cultural and social identity. When navigating the digital archive, each patch of pixel guides you to a name story supported by text, image, and audio submitted by the participants. Reflecting the cultural and social language structures that I grew up in, I have created surveys in Chinese and English to ask participants to share their experience between their names and digital presence. And I'm gonna dive into something fun. What I just played is maqam, rooted in traditional Uyghur oral history practice, maqam, and pattern-based storytelling. I took inspiration from Gilen Toppa to build the story display aspect of the website. The color system is inspired by Uyghur traditional silk weaving material atlas. For the typography, I used Video Grotesque, designed by Danny Angara, to collect names and languages that represents part of the global diasporas. A special thank you to my cousin Delisa for guiding and building the website with me. And thank you so much, Wang Ting, for guiding me for the UI UX throughout the process. And shout out to Nguyen community. Thank you for everybody that have shared this experience with me. What's next? If you resonate with the stories that I just tell you or curious about, I really would like to hear your story at whatisyourname.online. As the archiving grows, I would love to welcome collaboration and support that continue to sustain and protect the data input security. Also backend development and surveys. I'm really looking for physical spaces to continue this world building process away from the digital realm as well. As a radio producer, I'm looking for radio spaces to host the audio What Is Your Name interview series. Here's how you can reach me. The QR code leads you to my personal website. The best way to reach me is either through my Instagram or my Gmail. And one last thing, let me reintroduce myself. My name is Guliniali Tuerhong Guliniali Tuerhong. What is your name?
Hi everyone, this is Hiba. I'm coming to you from India in this async video recording. Digital semantics came to me in a time of great tragedy and great upheaval. As it will be, I would turn great tragedy to great poetry. I had recently gotten divorced from a 7-year marriage, and I moved to a very conservative, very white town for work. 7 years ago, I had already experienced our current political climate. The racial tension combined with grief that I could not escape. Like, it was everywhere, at work, at the grocery store, at my apartment complex, at the post office. It was really unbearable to hold all of that, right? When we tend to go through hardships, we tend to turn within and minimize it or act like it's not happening, denial, right? That's not just a river in Egypt. I wanted to break that cycle of isolation, the cycle of trauma, to go at it alone, make it just my burden. No. So I reached out and created digital semantics, and I'd like to give an example of what that might look like. As you watch this next video, I want you to pay attention to your breath and maybe taking it a little bit slower.
Look at the way the water circles again and again and again. This world is a beautiful place. Look at the way the clouds cycle around you. The looping is again and again.
I hope that you were able to notice your breath slowing down. You might have felt a sense of calm. And that's exactly what digital semantics is, right? Digital semantics poses that the physical is intimately connected to the digital, and the digital is intimately connected to the physical. Hence, digital semantic, which means the body. Often when we go through a hard time, we tend to deny it, we tend to minimize it, we tend to push these ideas of discomfort away. Digital somatics invites people to be brave by connecting deeper to their challenges and in turn their bodies, right? Because somatics is not about, being calm and kind and collected at all times. It's about being able to feel all the feelings when we need to feel them: rage, joy, anger, sadness, depression, whatever, right? Because we know at the other side of sadness and fear is joy. The other side of oppression is liberation. One goes with the other. It is primary to our bodies this happens, and this is what digital somatics is all about. So I propose that instead of tuning out of our bodies or in any dissociative state, we tune in and consider this question: how can immersive approaches slow down time enough for us to heal? We plant the world we want to live in and be in. So if we want to experience more joy, we have to plant those seeds that slowly grow over time, and it does not happen fast. Since we live in a world of anxiety and chaos, how do we plant the seeds of stability and joy in our present and future? We need to put action towards it. Digital somatics is at the heart of this, the center of this. The real action happens when we show up for ourselves, leading with kindness and compassion, and accepts the world around us. Just like in this image where this person is lying down and experiencing a virtual reality oasis, which I hope you do in my installation at Demo. Digital somatics can be practiced in a lot of ways through activating play with breath. This image is an example of that. Here, people are in the virtual reality installation I made and are activating bilateral stimulation by being directed in the virtual reality headset to move their bodies left and right rhythmically, which restores a feeling of calmness to our nervous system. This tells the body that we are safe here and we can play. This is emblematic of the feedback I received from people who have visited my installation, that after seeing my work, the feeling of calmness became so deeply restored and rooted in their bodies that they wanted to go home and take a nap, right? My work calms people down and centers them. This is because my work with technology is not designed to be addictive or habit forming. It is designed to ground and recenter the person. Digital somatics exists through sound, as you saw earlier in the VR recording of the water. It also exists through scent. So what's happening here, I made a custom scent inspired by Bahur incense. In the image, a person is lying down, looking up at the star character who is offering them a somatic release, paired with breathing in slowly a scent that I made for this exhibition. So digital somatics is a set of practices, principles, and workshops. So I'd like to leave you all with a question here today. What would practicing digital somatics in your everyday look like? How might you do things differently? How could you take things a little bit slower? I'm doing a workshop on this at the end of the month. I'd like you to take your phone and scan the QR code and sign up and join me there. And I'll close this off by we'll do some collective breath work, which you'll experience further in my installation at Demo. And that website again is digitalsomatics.com. So go ahead and join me there and sign up. I just need your email. And next, I'll count you all in. And there's going to be an animation that live responds to your breath. Okay, so I'll count you all in. I'd like you to keep your eyes open, casting a soft gaze on the screen. And let's breathe in together loudly and as deeply as we can. Thanks for all joining me today, and hope you experienced a version of this at my installation. And the next, again, it'll be responding to our breath. I'll share that next. Let's do this. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in. And slowly breathe out. One more time. Let's breathe in. 1, 2, 3. And then breathe out slowly. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3. Breathe out. One last time. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3. And then breathe out. Thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you check out my installation, follow me, and join me on digitalsomatics.com. And yeah, this is Hiba, and hope you have a great rest of the day. Take care. Bye.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. This is Da Vinci's perpetual motion machine. It shows a hypothetical machine that can move forever without any external energy. This idea originated in the Middle Ages, where scholars called it a magic wheel. And even though modern physics has proved it impossible, hundreds still, since then, have dedicated their lives to making one. I'm not sure I can make a magic wheel, but I'm interested in how technology can help us create seemingly infinite energy through magic circles, environments that allow us to transcend the normal rules of reality. Hi, I'm Spencer Chang, and I'm an artist and engineer who makes communal computers. And today I want to share some of the questions that I found on my search for infinite energy through these words that I use to describe myself. It all starts with the computer. I grew up on my family's computer. The small one is me, if it isn't clear. And I was initially drawn to the internet because of how infinite it felt in the games and worlds that I visited. So I started learning to create my own websites and apps. And eventually I realized that all of this software was made by someone else using software. I wanted more people to have this privilege, so I joined a startup working to make software creation as easy as using a spreadsheet. But while the startup optimized for productivity and efficiency, which is what they pitched to businesses, I found myself more interested in the uses of the tool by people that were quote-unquote useless to the business, but still full of personal utility and energy. Things like wedding planners and personalized plant care schedulers. A few years later, I left this job to explore this tension and what would happen if I actually tried to make useless technology, this time as an artist. I started creating websites and environments that had lives of their own and changed over time and with the seasons, regardless of what the user input. I experimented with natural materials like clay and stone and making technology for them. These webstones, as I started calling them, allowed me to give my website to people when I first met them, to grant new fortunes every day in a whimsical ritual, and even embed found objects with audio memories of the places that they came from. Functionally, these weren't so different from scanning a QR code, but experientially, they imbued a sense of magic with the technology that I felt reciprocated by people's energies when I would meet them. They would light up and excitedly tell me new ideas that they wanted to do with it. Inspired by this, I started teaching workshops. And by now, hundreds of people across the world, from New York to Berlin to San Francisco, have created their own webstones. And all of them have come up with things that I would have never imagined. I realized that when we loosen this optimization on scale and efficiency that technology normally prioritizes, it allows people's personal energies and stories to fill the cracks. These webstones that people have made have become this piece of art that lives with them in their everyday lives. I wanted more people to be able to create spaces like this that would empower us to infuse our stories into the technology that we use every day. So I started circling back to my roots as an engineer and wondered how I could make art that was useful. I created a real-time infrastructure, an open source infrastructure that in just a few lines of code made it possible to design real-time interactions so that the things you did in a digital space happened instantly for everyone else. People have created spaces for thousands to bump into each other on the internet and have a conversation, take internet walks, create mosaics, and ultimately interact with each other with a rich expressiveness that transcends the flatness of traditional social platforms. Through these interactions, I found that the billions of us that use the internet, like you and me, We already know how we want to connect with each other through this space. We just need the infrastructure to allow us to actively shape it. And I was reminded of what I love about cities, how anyone can come up with an idea to improve their community and make it happen. And even though these digital encounters were meaningful and intimate, they were still completely separate from my physical community. So I started exploring a form of technology that could actually empower the ways we already live and exist in the real world, and that could adapt to our communities. Computing Shrines is my latest work that embeds the collective internet spaces, like you saw earlier, inside public art sculptures. These experiences co-opt our devices, which have been historically individual and divisive, to exchange our stories, hopes, and dreams with each other, with the people who share the same space as us. The shrines are designed to be easily reproducible so that anyone can make their own, and they can contribute their ideas back to the community infrastructure. A few are installed around the corner for demo, so please check them out and leave some traces of yourselves for others to find. And get in touch if you'd like to make your own or host your own in your community or organization. All of my projects have found their way to this idea of infinite energy from different angles. Whether physical or digital, I realize that we will play and create together and even care for one another in any space, given the right tools. We can hold hands through our phones just as we can in real life. I'm interested in my art more for the conversation it starts than the art piece itself. Technology more for the things that people can make with it than the tool, which is why I care about creating these environments and infrastructure, these magic circles that go beyond the white wall and our devices to engage and live with us in our everyday lives. Put together, I think our energy can create new systems, can reimagine our relationships with and through technology, and hopefully inspire others to continue that cycle. And maybe we and our technology can become a true perpetual motion machine. If you'd like to look for the answer together or support my search, please continue the conversation. And of course, none of this would have been possible without the support of New Inc., its community, and all of the people and organizations listed here. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is Avneesh, and I'm Sumanth. We are engineers, musicians, and multimedia artists based in New York.
We want to create audiovisual art that is intimate, idiosyncratic, and capable of virtuosity. So, virtuosity, what do we mean by that? To us, virtuosity is the ability to express detail and subtlety.
Now, you might think that's a bit of an odd definition for virtuosity. And to unpack that, it requires some background on us. We say we're multimedia artists, but really we are musicians that work with code and graphics. Both Avneesh and I started off playing the guitar, and we have a background in improvisation and live performance. And so when we think of virtuosity, we are thinking about the flashiness of shredding a guitar solo, but we're also thinking about the tenderness and grace with which you would play an acoustic guitar. And we bring that sort of mindset with us when we try to treat the computer as an instrument.
So one very literal example of this is my work building visual instruments for performing live with musicians. One particular band that I collaborated with was a jazz fusion duo. They'd play music with very complicated time signatures and shifting rhythms. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to get a good synchronization with the visuals with a traditional sequencer. So instead, I just ended up using a MIDI drum pad and would play out my visual triggers live, playing rhythms and parts like a member of the band.
On the right is a picture where I used Wi-Fi network activity in the venue to create musical phrases. And we had a jazz trio play along to it as a means of framing this generative instrument. And the intention there was for the band to provide accents and emphasis on the rhythmic parts of this machine-generated output. And if you look for a common thread in these two projects, it's that we relied on humans to add temporal richness to what would otherwise be static computer art.
Another project that influenced our thinking around digital virtuosity was this projection mapping piece from 2019. So the animations you're seeing running on the various surfaces aren't videos, they're rendered live. Some of the animations use physics simulations to control the gravity or the letters bouncing against each other, and others use more traditional timeline-based animations. And to get the look that we wanted, we needed to switch back and forth between a physics-based animation or a timeline-based animation in the same pane. And so the code to manage this was really clunky, and it made us wish we had a more elegant solution for wrangling different types of time in the same project. Virtuosity requires a certain flow with your tools, and in that sense, this project did not deliver. I always felt like I was fighting against the code to express the nuance that I wanted.
I write and perform experimental music under the moniker Reckoner, and live coding is a central part of how I perform on stage. While it allows you to manipulate intricate musical patterns and add a certain level of richness, it still lacks the ability to craft certain finer details. And by that I mean, I'm thinking about building lush swells with filters, or adding specific imagery that only accompanies drum fills as opposed to the entire rhythm pattern. It's hard to do these things when you don't have access to smooth time, if you will. For sonic detail, I kind of turn to analog synths and live vocals, which you can play off the grid. And to tightly couple visuals and music, my collaborator and I had to build bespoke data sharing channels between our computers.
So as we started to make more combined audiovisual works, we realized that synchronizing a separate music system and a separate graphic system was incredibly limiting. We wanted to step away from this music and visuals dichotomy and start thinking of them as reflections of the same entity. And so in this audiovisual realm then, what is virtuosity? To us, virtuosity in the digital realm means granular control across layers of abstraction. And while there's ways to get this control for just music or just graphics, what's missing is a single unified and precise way to control time across media. So we built our own JavaScript timing library to enable this. It lets us mix and match different ways of thinking about time, giving us a unified language to express various pretty different types of musical and visual phenomena.
So for the last 2 years, we built a variety of artistic studies and prototypes with this new timing library we made. This included audiovisual synths, sequencers, and musical drawing tools even. And in this process, we figured out that this new tool allows us to have certain audiovisual interactions that were not possible without it. And it also reinforced our notion that in order to build good interactive art, we need to bake the interactivity into the creative flow. It's not something you can tack on later.
So this next example is a prototype of a projection mapping tool that we built. You can pop out a window and drag it over your mapping area, draw out the shapes on the surface you're interested in, live code generative animations that use melodic information and then also the shapes you've drawn, and then trigger these combined melody animations with a MIDI controller in real time. Here's an example of what it looks like. Our JavaScript library lets us define the exact dynamic relationship we want between notes and animations without having to hard code it to any specific melody. It effectively lets us do parametric design for the animations, and we can swap out the melodies and keep the timing in sync, which is great, especially if we wanted to do some kind of improvised performance with this. This mix of precision and flexibility finally gives us the flow we've wanted for expressing nuanced audiovisual relationships. And we're still wrangling with the creative potential of this tool, but we're very excited by the possibilities. Virtuosity demands growth, and we finally have a tool that lets us really grow as audiovisual composers.
And another striking realization we had in this whole process of making art with our new tool is that multimedia live performance is a relatively new medium. And while there's plenty to be adapted from animation, dance, and music, like this specific combination of sound, moving image, and interactivity is like really new. And the synthesis of these mediums affords new interaction modalities and aesthetic choices that were not available previously for its constituent parts. And so we think this is a whole new area of research and aesthetic exploration.
And we're excited to bring these experiments out into the real world. If you're a concert organizer, we'd love to do a site-specific projection map performance at your space. If you're a curator, we'd love to talk to you about how our browser-based platform lets these works live both online and in a gallery. Or if you're an artist, we'd love to know if anything we're building can be useful to your creative practice. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here. I'm so excited to spend this time with you. My name is Tara, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my project Moves, a speculative archive centering digital embodiment. But before we get started, we've been sitting for a while, so if you wouldn't mind joining me in an activity, in whatever capacity you feel comfortable to do so. And if you're watching online or watching this back, feel free to follow along. So sitting, standing, whatever's in your comfort. First, I'm gonna have you raise your left hand and wiggle your fingers. Then I'm gonna have you add your other hand and do a little wave and clap them together. Please hold your applause. And shrug your shoulders. Feel what it feels like to move in your body. And do a little shimmy. Look around. Feel what it feels like to move in your body alongside other people. Thank you for doing that with me. Feel free to relax. In Phenomenology of Perception, Maurice Merleau-Ponty says that the body is our general medium for having a world. Here we are, feeling versions of the same sensations, sharing space and time, physically and digitally. And in this way, we are having a world together. Dancing together allows us to be active and joyful in co-imagining this world. Moves is an artwork that I began in the fall of 2019 as a way to make real the creative community that I was cultivating online up to that point. I didn't want to just see people in the flatness of their curated profiles. I wanted to feel them, move with them, be in our bodies together. I would reach out to artists, we would meet up, create a recording of them dancing, and then spend time talking about our practices and our lives, ultimately creating a collaborative animation based on that experience. These were some of the works created during that time. As time went on, I began to place the animated bodies together and share digital dance floors, in no small part influenced by the lack of dance floors and the isolation felt during the pandemic. In this way, the project for me became this joyful, tender act of gardening my own digital archive of my community in Oakland, Los Angeles, and online. This is House Party, where my online Web3 community dances together in an imaginary space, but a space that recalls times that we have actually danced together. In moving back to Toronto and beginning New Ink Art and Code this past fall, I wanted to explore how technology could be used to further this endeavor. I began using code, segmentation models, and GANs trained on my previous animations to explore new possibilities for the work. All of this with the aim of using these technologies, not to extract, sort, or predict data, but to witness, remember, and be present with the body. This was my first time mounting the project in Toronto, and it was such an exciting activation for me because the 360 projection allowed the recorded dancers to exist alongside the people in the space at the same scale. And that, along with a great DJ, created a really strong invitation for people to dance in the space, something that's sometimes hard to do in gallery settings. I was able to stage the project in this latest iteration at Interaccess for Doors Open Toronto last month. 50+ people stepped into the booth in the span of a day, danced, and added their gestures to the growing Toronto archive that will show at Nuit Blanche in October. Here, people were directly confronted with the space that their bodies would inhabit in the projection as they recorded their move. Some people mimicked existing dances, some people went in new directions, and everyone spent time looking for themselves and their loved ones in the projection after they danced. In this iteration, glitch was further introduced as the images blur into a collective. This is the dance floor that was created, with each individual able to access the archive after on the archival website. We are surrounded by technology that flattens us into legible, profitable forms. But Moves is not about legibility. You can see yourself and the people you love, but these silhouetted renderings preserve anonymity. Your image is preserved as gesture, not personal data. In this way, Moves offers a choreography of mutual recognition, a soft, shared gesture that refuses the extractive logics that structure so much of the rest of our digital lives. From here, I want to bring the project to Toronto, New York, and beyond, providing a turnkey experience that allows spaces to archive their own communities in a participatory, non-extractive way. Individuals share a short movement that is recorded, rotoscoped, and looped to trim, or trimmed to loop, and their gesture is preserved alongside their community on a web page situated dance floor, accessible online and projected at full scale in the space where possible, inviting more dance into the space. I'm particularly excited about this project existing in the threshold spaces of galleries, businesses, and community centers, where people come together as they enter a shared world. So what's next? If you're an artist, curator, or cultural worker, let's archive your community through Moves. And if you're a person with a body, dance with me. By joining the project, come find me and we'll record your move. And more broadly, at Disco Kina tonight, in how you think about technology and in how you relate to each other. With this project, I'm imagining a different kind of digital world, embodied, soft, and welcoming. This has been a true labor of love for me as I try to renegotiate my relationship with technology, my digital self, and my forever pursuit of belonging. For little Tara, who also loved to dance. Let's make moves together. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have another round of applause for Art and Code, everyone? Thank you all so much for those wonderful presentations and for sharing such cute baby photos with us. Each of you brings such thoughtful and careful, expansive approaches to your work with technology, and you really view it and utilize it as not something to optimize or control us, but as a medium for care and creativity, co-presence, and poetic possibility. If you don't mind, I'd like to open the floor with a question for everyone. How do you approach designing or creating projects for co-presence across distance, time, scale, and different interfaces?
Yeah, I can start us off. I think it's really tough to design something for co-presence because technology is so versatile, and because of that, it can feel very disconnected from us and our bodies. And so I think the things I gravitate towards as like core principles, I guess, are a sense of play and a sense of care, I guess. Like, I think the play part invites this sort of surprise and emergence that lets people dictate what the space should look like rather than it being prescriptive. And I think the care part infuses this humanity into it that makes it feel real and not like a manufactured thing.
to complement that, I have a bit more of a technical answer. Well, not exactly, but I think from an engineering point of view, really just making sure stuff is reliable, even if that means simplifying things down. Because if things are reliable, then people will invest in them and they'll kind of grow with whatever you've built and then take more time with it, as opposed to trying to cram a lot of things in and then you can't count on it and then there's not the investment with the people you're building for.
Yeah, kind of extending that, I think having multiple access points to the work as well, whether that's in physical space and then having a corresponding website so that people can be together with the work and also access it if they're not able to be in physical space.
Really quick add-on. I think sensibility, different senses also trigger a lot of, that's why just because as a radio producer, I think I really focus on audio storytelling, and I think navigating this digital world within this art and code realm has been really interesting because I think we could always extend how people feel with different sense as well. Just adding on to whatever you guys were saying, yeah.
Guliniali, we talked a lot this year about names, and I wanted to ask you a bit more about your project, What Is Your Name?, which functions as a bit of a counter-archive, a cultural memory device, and a form of digital history. What does it mean to you to expand this conversation and archive across radio and potentially across physical spaces as well?
I think I would say digital media for me as a medium, I really enjoy the extension of what digital media could be. Even with like web form, with What Is Your Name, it is a website itself. The core value of it is to bring connection, to cultivate conversations or stories that someone else could feel seen, visibility as well. And I think moving that towards a physical space where any type of infrastructure, I think it kind of still echo the same, value of what I see digital media as, whether it's like through audio or physical space. I think the medium itself doesn't really deliver that much of what I value rather than my intention. So what I encode in the medium really gets decoded with folks, like how they feel about, the project, What Is Your Name, and whatnot. And I hope radio is easy to listen to. It's also listening to audio in an aspect is you're constantly in your own space. Whether you're outside, you're kind of carrying this digital media with you. I think it's really intersectional in that way.
Thank you. Tara, you are also building an archive of sorts of movement. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about how you negotiate different kinds of performance, whether that's like professional dance, choreography, or TikTok dances. How do you engage with dance as a personal act or as one that happens, with friends at a party?
Yeah, so I am not a professional dancer by any means, but I love to dance, and if you do come to Disco Kina tonight, I will be dancing, and you should dance with me. But I think that dance has always, for me, been a way to share space with other people in a way without having to talk or to have an activity. I suppose dance is an activity, but it feels like a really embodied form, and I think whether that's you dancing alone in your room or performing for the camera or performing for an audience, there are kernels of both performance and of embodiment in all of those acts. And I think that sort of look inward and inward experience combined with that kind of outward facing performance is really what makes dance such a connective medium.
Thank you. Spencer, your work pivoted from productivity to what you call useless technologies. Can you explain a bit more about how you think about usefulness or useful art or useless art?
Yeah, I think my work constantly sits between this tension of the two. I think focusing too much on one or the other it's easy to get lost in that and optimizing for that. And so I think I found myself in this sort of perpetual balancing act maybe, where I try to make stuff that has a meaning that, to someone, to a person or a community, but also isn't so focused on the function that it loses the people behind the technology or the people who it's devoted to.
Thank you. Sumanth and Avneesh, what kind of experience are you hoping to create for someone encountering your audiovisual work? Is it about immersion or surprise or agency or something else entirely?
I have been thinking a lot about what I would call multimodal art. So by that I mean something that you could experience in a gallery and then go home, log onto a website and experience pretty much the same thing. Or a place where a concert experience and your at-home experience is very similar in the audiovisual world. So yeah, having that kind of translation across medium is something I would hope to accomplish.
Did you have something to add?
Yeah, for me, I think working on this kind of stuff has been, as we said in our talk, music is our sort of first love, and for me, the experience of music has always been a pretty visceral thing. It's what just takes me outside of the world and any kind of material references you can think of, and so adding this visual component is just a way to kind of hit that oomph even harder in whoever's watching.
That's really good, thank you. We're almost out of time, so a final question that I might pose to the floor. What happens when we stop asking technology what it can do and start asking how it can make us feel?
I think that is what we all want out of technology right now. I think that for a long time we've kind of seen technology as this tool, but that it is also really taken from us and really extracted from us. And I speak from my own experience. It often does not make me feel very good. And so I think that, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think in a lot of our work, we're trying to get at that affect of technology and create alternative uses for technology that center feeling over use.
I think for me, technology itself, I think I use it as a medium to feel rather than could it actually on its own make me feel? Because with my topic specifically with digital media, I used, social media to navigate a lot of archives or reclamation. In that sense, it does make me feel. I think it created a third space for me to explore what I wasn't able to explore a lot of times. And I think in that aspect, that is what technology could make me feel. But the rest, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like the use of technology is now inseparable from how it makes us feel because of how pervasive it is. And I think that's what all of our works also get at, is that there's no meaning or use of technology without us using it. And increasingly, I think we're seeing less of a focus on where can technology go, but it's already here in our lives, and how can we use it to talk to each other and improve our lives, I guess.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that by there are two different perspectives on how one would view technology. There's obviously the consumer point of view where it's very pervasive, but as an artist and someone who turns ideas into tangible things using technology, I think what the feeling that I would like to get from technology is fluidity. If I can seamlessly take an idea and see it in the real world in some meaningful way without having to fight the tools, without having to, fight the technology in a certain sense or be aware of the tool itself, that I think that's a great feeling to have. I recently read this book called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and it says that the test of a good machine is its ability to give you peace of mind. And so I really believe in that.
It's a beautiful note to end on. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, New Ink. Thank you, Art and Code.
Thank you.